Hello everyone, my name is Mansamusa and welcome back to my channel. Today we're back with another Advanced Wars by Web video in a continuation of the OneTurn series. If you missed the first video, I'll link it up here, but the goal of the series is to capture all the goodness of a standard replay analysis video into just one turn, and hopefully in the process shorten the length of these videos, because I know some of my own videos as well as some of the other content creators out in the space tend to make 40 minute long, 50 minute long, hour long videos at times, and personally I just can't always find that time, so I wanted to create a little bit more of short form content and just cover a single very amazing turn in Advanced Wars by Web. You'll notice that this game is going to be very familiar from the first video if you did watch that video, and that's because this is actually the day right after the last turn video, the last turn of the previous video, and it's going to be Clone's response to Poland's lightning strike. If you did miss that video, essentially what happened on the previous turn is that Poland used Lightning Strike to about cut Clone's army in half, from 46 units and 300,000 unit value down to just 23 and 150,000. So normally in one-turn videos, I would just move on to a different game and just talk about how great of a turn that was for Poland. But I thought it was worth, just in this one instance, to give Clone his response turn, because number one, it is a very good turn, and we'll cover it here in a second. But number two, it just seems a bit rude to go through a video saying that half your army got demolished without giving you a proper chance to show what you could do on the comeback. Before we get into the turn itself, let's quickly discuss Sensei as a commanding officer. Sensei is a high funds tier 1 CO. He's actually not available in either of the other formats, Fog or Standard, and that's because his powers are just too broken. But in high funds, he scales a little bit less well, so he's allowed in tier 1. Quickly just talking about all of his powers, his day-to-day power is that his battlecopters are, I believe, 50% stronger than most battlecopters, making them essentially as strong as normal people's bombers, which is just a broken ability. I also believe that his infantry and mechs are 40% more powerful, and his powers synergize with that, allowing him to build those for free, but we'll get into that in a second. His other vehicle units, I believe, that are non-air units are 10% weaker, so his tanks, his artillery, those types of things are just slightly weaker than average, but it's not a huge drawback for Sensei. And I believe his transports also get +1 movement. I think that's all of his day-to-day powers, if I remember correctly. And then his two powers are a 2-star power, which allows him to spawn infantry units, 9 HP infantry units, on all the cities that he owns on the map. And all of those infantry are allowed to move on the same turn that they're spawned in, which is a huge benefit and powerful play for Sensei. And his superpower is essentially the exact same thing, except that it's mechs instead of infantry. And basically, there's two general strategies with these powers. One, you either pop a bunch of your small power, because it's only 2 stars and it's very cheap, and it allows you to amass very high unit count. You can get 50, 60, 70 units if the map allows for it very quickly, and kind of spam the map with your units, make impossible walls to break through, and just slowly suffocate your opponent like that, getting very aggressive in towards the cities and making it impossible for them to get really any counterplay against you just by having unbreakable walls all across the map. The other main method that you can go for in Sensei games is by popping a few of those 2-star powers to start, and then saving up for your superpower, which will spawn mechs everywhere, and those will take out all of the light vehicles, the anti-air, the tanks, even on mass, something like a medium tank, because Sensei mechs are so powerful, with enough of them thrown into the fold. The other benefit of Sensei's powers, both his small power and his big power, is it allows him to get very high unit value through having increased income. Because these units are all spawned at 9 HP, that means you can join them together, allowing those excess funds to be transferred back to you. So this is going to be a very powerful strategy at the beginning of the game. A standard Sensei play is to build something powerful like a Neo Tank or a Medium Tank and just completely sacrifice it into your opponent, like attack a Neo Tank or Mega Tank of your opponent on bad terrain, or just put it in a very awkward situation to where it will get attacked essentially for free. And while this might seem like a really bad play for any other CO, it's actually great for Sensei because it allows him to get his power very quickly, which then means he will get overwhelming unit count very soon into the game, which will allow him to capture a bunch of contested cities in the early to mid part of the game, and also use that extra income from combining some far back troops to allow him to out-income curve his opponents, similar to Sasha in something like Tier 1 Standard. So that can be a very strong strategy for Sensei in the early part of the game, and then in the later game he's going to want to use more of his superpowers to spawn mechs on these cities. With all that being said, let's get right into this turn and discuss how Clone was able to come back from such a devastating turn from Poland when half of his army got wiped out using the power of Sensei's Super CO power. So let's get right into the turn here. Clone is just going to move his tank off the city. The only reason he's doing that is to keep all of these cities open, so he gets a mech in literally every single one of these cities. He goes ahead and then pops his Airborne Assault, that's the name of the Super CO power, and spawns all the mechs on these empty cities. If we do just a quick read from there, he had 23 units, 153,000 value, and after the Airborne Assault, he has 41 units and 200,000 value. So he spawned 50,000 value worth of mechs and around, I think, 20 units, and he has now 26 mechs on the map. And all these mechs are plus 40% more powerful than any other mechs for other COs. This is insanely powerful. I mean, this is like a Zergling rush, and I think in some of these other games that I've heard of before, where it's like you're just spawning a bunch of minions, very, you know, barely threatening, but still extremely threatening on mass units into overwhelm your opponent. And we'll see how Clone executes that here on the turn. So he goes ahead and uses artillery to knock out some anti-air. An important thing to recognize that we talked about in the last game, Poland has 10 anti-air on the field. Anti-air are going to be great units against Sensei because his main powerful units are his battlecopters and his mechs, both of which the anti-air threaten or counter very heavily. So Clone is going to do his best this turn to try to knock out as many anti-air as he can, and we'll see how successful he is. He brings out this mech to fully kill that anti-air. Knocks off a 1 HP battlecopter, basically kills this anti-air up here in the north. Moves his Neotank back, opening a space up now to clear out this battlecopter and then attack this mega tank. So we first get an engagement here on the anti-air, knocking it down to 1 HP, getting some more kills off here on the infantry and this infantry here. I think we're going to see this now. Okay, yeah, so he's going to use his battlecopter actually to clear the space for the mega tank hit. Then it goes ahead and goes for it. It gets an 8-4 engagement, a very nice engagement with his mega tank. He's going to bring in this one in a few turns to cover, but is going to be attacked by this one first. So kind of a good engagement, kind of a bad one. You have to go for this as Sensei, but in the immediate term, it's going to be losing, I believe. Brings in this tank to finish off the anti-air kill. Kills off the 1 HP anti-air with this infantry on the city. Sacrifices his anti-air, which is actually very nice, to both chip this anti-air here and open up the space for the mechs to come in and potentially do more damage to the anti-air here on the road, which is what he goes for. It gets another sack there. Unfortunately, this mech is not one tile closer, or else he could have gotten another kill on the anti-air. It would have been great for Clone, but because of the limited movement range of the mechs, he's not able to do it. He brings his other mechs forward to the front. He's not really focusing as much on combining units. That's more of an early game tactic. The funds are not going to be as important for Clone here as just good positioning of these mechs. So he has a decision to make here. Does he want to send these mechs up slowly to the north to threaten this army, or does he want to send them to the south? And I think the correct answer here is to send them to the south to address this 5 anti-air line. Sending in enough mechs here will clear out those anti-airs, even if the anti-airs are counters, just because you can only attack 1 unit per turn, obviously. So having, you know, 5 here, which is what he currently has, is bad engagement numbers for Clone. I almost call him Cloland. Yeah, sorry, for Clone. But if he sends these 5 down as well, he'll have 10 to just the 5 anti-air of Poland. He'll have good numbers, and he can win that engagement in the long run. He sends his APC back to ferry these mechs up to the front line. Builds another anti-air. It's very important. As we talked about at the end of last turn, this anti-air was basically the only healthy one that Clone had, so he needs to build, I would even say, 2 or 3 anti-air on his bases this turn to address the, I believe, 5 battlecopters of Poland, but he's going to be building more in the future, and undoubtedly, because he is Eagle, and also just the overall anti-air numbers that Poland has as well. Fighting anti-air with anti-air in that way. So he brings his mechs down, which is what we talked about, gets good unit numbers there. Brings out his indirect units a little bit towards the front line. I think he actually needs to be a bit more aggressive and towards locking this area down. If there was a way to cover this mega tank, that would have been ideal, but I don't think there was without risking the Neotank breaking through and attacking the rockets. But he needs actually to send some of his wally units, all spawning all these units, and funnily enough, Sensei is lacking in a wall potential here to wall off space for his rockets to then counter the mega tank attacking back. To be fair, a mega tank doesn't take that much damage from rockets in the first place. I think it would take about 2 damage on the planes, so nothing super significant. But any chip damage on a mega tank is very powerful, and I think that is the play that Clone should try to go for. And that wraps up the turn here. So that was Clone's response. You can see it was a very respectable response. He was able to get basically 100,000 unit value, a 20 unit count lead just through his superpower, and he wiped off a ton of Poland's anti-air and weakened more that were on the field as well. Overall, though, if you take a look at this game state as we head towards the end of the game, I do still think Poland has the advantage. Number one, he's going to have a very strong turn here where he still has 5 anti-air in the area that are going to clear off a bunch of mechs, which importantly not only reduces Clone's unit count, but also builds him a lot of power charge, which he's going to be used to get his lightning strike again, probably before Clone gets a second airborne assault. So that's going to be a strong advantage for Poland as we head to the end part of this game. Second thing here, as we talked about previously, the Mega Tank is going to be able to come back and attack this Mega Tank on the plains without this one in range yet. So even though the overall numbers here are 3 versus 2, Poland's going to get the immediate advantage and then can retreat his own Mega Tank back before any reinforcements come to the area. And then finally, income is still not super advantageous for Clone. Yes, he's up 1 city, but in a game against Eagle like this, especially as you head into the end game, you really need to be up 3 or 4 cities to really have an edge. And ideally, probably this comm tower as well. That's just the level of aggression and board space you need. Otherwise, Poland can and will here just consolidate his units back up, build a stronger army up to like 30 or 40 units, and then use a devastating lightning strike again, wiping out about half of Clone's, if not more than half of Clone's army again on his next superpower. Talking briefly about Clone's builds on this turn, he only built 1 anti-air on this base, and I do think that that was actually a mistake, just because Poland has 5 battlecopters out on the board right now, all of which are very healthy, lowest one 7 HP, and I think it's going to be in Poland's best interest to continue building more battlecopters and more infantry. If we actually look at the unit composition of Poland's army, he only has 4 tanks, and the rest of them are anti-air, battlecopters, or infantry. And all of those units can be either neutrally or hard countered by more anti-air on Clone's part. So I do think it was a mistake only building 1 anti-air when the majority of Poland's army is susceptible to anti-air. I think he should have built 2 or 3 on this turn. But, you know, this is what he went for. I do think overall, the turn in general, the power that he got from the superpower was good. But if we take a look here, this game only went on for about 4 or 5 more days. This is the board state on turn 25. You can see that Poland is very close to getting his lightning strike in the next few turns. He's able to consolidate his army while keeping a close income battle, and his next lightning strike is going to be very devastating as he has around 30 or 40 units. We look at high value units as well. We see 1, 2 mega tanks here by Poland, 2, 3 for Clone. And again, if we look at the anti-air count now for Poland, he has 15 anti-air to combat all of the mechs and battlecopters that Sensei wants to pop out. And Sensei only has 3 battlecopters to attack all of the battlecopters and infantry that Eagle has. So at the end of this game, it may sound like I'm harping a lot on Clone here. I'm not. I think he played a great game. In general, taking Poland to day 25 before he does ultimately resigns the game, I think was very strong. I just think in this specific matchup of Sensei versus Eagle in Tier 1, it really is all about the anti-air. Both commanders are very strong with both their infantry and their, not Eagle as much as infantry, but both commanders are very strong with their battlecopters. Both commanders are going to have a lot of battlecopters and infantry on the board in general, just because for Poland it's cheap. And his battlecopters are strong, and for Sensei, he spawns them in, and his battlecopters are strong. So you really need to have a bunch of anti-air, especially in a high funds match where you're going to be spamming out more battlecopters than in standard play as well. That being said, great game to both Clone and Poland. This was a very exciting match to cast, and I look forward to casting more matches in the OneTurn series in the future. If you have a game that you think would be great for this series, please email it to me at mansamusaytreplays@gmail.com. I'll link it in the description as well, and I look forward to casting your games in the next coming weeks and months. That being said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. My name is Mansamusa, and remember, anti-air are your most powerful units in a Sensei versus Eagle matchup. Bye, guys.